following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. Hello, listeners on Saga 960 AM and those listening around the world on streaming and podcast services. This is It's Not Therapy. I'm Liana Kersner, and I am not a therapist, but I am your source for practical advice for everyday problems, using my top 10 sayings for checking in with your best self. This episode is just you and me and comments from clients, listener. I've been hearing a lot about how people are starting to be depressed, frustrated, and angry about the hypocrisy of the most wonderful time of the year, when people put on a pageant of niceness only to go back to being horrible jerks the rest of the year. One client was so upset about this that they canceled their session. They didn't feel like they were in a place to talk. So I'm using this show to reach out so that they and others feeling the same way don't have to talk, but they can still feel heard because, fair point. If you've got a question or comment on stuff like this or anything else, 289-275-9600, give me a call, 289-275-9600, or Liana at nottherapyshow.com. If that's too much to remember, you can just go to nottherapyshow.com, fill out the contact form, or Twitter, Instagram, at nottherapyshow. I'm getting used to Instagram. I'm being more freeform in the videos I make there. I still don't like it, but I am adjusting. Now, I said before that some people don't feel heard this time of year. A lot of people also don't feel seen, and that's a lousy feeling. Now, a lot of things can contribute to feeling invisible. Identity stereotypes, childhood abuse or neglect, disability, illness, bullying, or just plain shyness can make a person feel like they're just a background object instead of a person who matters. And that can make holiday gatherings feel awful. Feeling this way can also lead to feelings of anger, envy, shame, and sadness because it cuts to the core of your identity. And identity is a tender, deeply personal, really misunderstood thing. You hear a lot about identity and identity politics in the news. And a lot of it, well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say a lot of it's wrong. Identity is what makes you feel like you, an individual, whole, and valid person who deserves rights, has boundaries, wants things, and feels love and connections to other people. Identity is a combination of things we define for ourselves and things the world forces on us. The things we define ourselves are within our control. No, really, they are. You can be anything you want to be inside your own head. The things the world forces on us, on the other hand, are tougher to manage because, well, they're forced on us. These are expectations set by others connected to, race, gender, including gender identity, religion, sexual orientation, disability, neurotypicalities, biodiversities, income bracket, a whole list of other things. You get the idea. This is a fancy way of saying that stereotypes exist and everyone's forced to confront at least one of them at some point in their lives. And it sucks. For everyone. And then everyone fights about who has it worst. This is not productive. Top 10 phrase. Ignoring negatives isn't being positive. Everyone has something in their life that sucks. Question is, are you going to use it to quote Queen Latifah's version of The Equalizer, call people out or call people in? We all have a choice in what we focus on, and it's good to focus on the positive, but spending energy trying to completely block out the suck parts of life means you tend to run around in circles. Yeah, you might have a racist in-law, a sexist boss, or a homophobic or transphobic parent of your kid's bestie. And you can choose whether that controls your life or whether it's just a part of a life filled with a lot of really great stuff, as well as some stuff that sucks. that you may be able to do something about. You may not be able to do something about it. But no matter what, it's only one part of a life. Now, for some reason, the purpose of this most wonderful time of the year gets inverted. Instead of this being a time of lights in the darkness, it becomes, let's fake that everything's fine, get through a week that drains us, then go back to secretly hating each other. Or not so secretly hating each other. Either way, that's messed up. The point of the lights in the darkest time of year is that the lights make the darkness less scary. When you're next to the light, you can acknowledge the darkness without the darkness consuming you. And I know I'm being really Northern Hemisphere centric right now. Apologies to my listeners near and south of the equator. Let me make it clear. You don't have to fake that everything is fine right now. Just use the stuff that's good to put the stuff that sucks in its place, right? And if you're going, that's impossible, this isn't realistic. For you, that may be true. It's impossible to do what I just said if you don't actually know who you are, and therefore you don't know what you like about yourself. Some of my clients struggle with the very idea of identity. They want some being to come down from the sky, all Angel Gabriel-like, and tell them who they are. And that's not how this works. How identity works is it's more like finding a Green Lantern ring. What? Hear me out. Superhero time. Green Lanterns recite an oath while their rings are recharging. Yeah, Green Lantern rings have to recharge every so often. The time period depends on the type of Green Lantern ring. Doesn't matter. Moving on. Green Lanterns recite an oath while their rings are recharging. And that oath isn't essential to the recharge. What it does is it contextualizes the tough stuff that Green Lanterns experience just because they decided to wear a freaking power ring. And the metaphor ties into this topic because the Green Lantern oath is, in brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. It's basically a longer version of Spider-Man's with great power comes great responsibility because DC likes to decompress stories. But Spider-Man, Green Lantern, it all means the same thing. If you got a spidey sense, if you can stick to walls, if you got a ring that grants you power limited only by your imagination, you better use it for good instead of evil, or else you're the one worshiping evil's might. Everyone has a superpower. It's why I say be the hero of your own story. But I also say, and not anyone else's, because everyone has a great responsibility to use their great power for good and not to stomp others. That superpower and the responsibility that comes with it is your identity. The words you use to shape that power are limited only by your imagination, like the Green Lantern rings, hence the metaphor. So use whatever words sound and feel right to you. Describe your identity any way you want, as long as it feels real, tangible, and solid. And if words fail, maybe pictures work. Most of my inner identity pieces are fictional male characters with beards. And do I care if people think that's weird? Nope. Because the people who think that's bad weird, they're not my people. Now, the problem is the people you spend your holidays with might not be your people. And if that's the case, it's important to figure out why you're spending the holidays with them. Is it because you still get something out of the experience? Or is it because you're hoping to get something that's not realistic, so you end up disappointed and depressed every year? Or do you keep going back into these situations, these gatherings, even though you dread them, even though they're abusive, And even though they leave you wrecked every single time. Top 10 phrase. Healthy goals are based on things you can control. Does your family drive you crazy, but they're still your family, so you're willing to put up with their less great parts? Okay, that's a choice. Valid choice, but it's your choice. No one's forcing you. Green Lantern power. Now, would you rather not see your family because they don't respect boundaries and you end up miserable every time you go? That's a valid choice too. Except that they're not forcing you to make it. They're not evil's might. They're your family that's annoying. Maybe. Maybe they are evil's might, which underlines my point. You're making the decision that's best for you. And making that choice and then resenting your family's limitations isn't going to make that a happier or easier choice. And just because you skip 1 year doesn't mean it has to be forever. It's just not now. Or maybe there's a happy medium. Decide to go, but if things cross a certain point that you figure out in advance, you're going to politely excuse yourself and leave. Now you can plan an explanation ahead of time for why you may have to go, or don't give any reason at all. It's your choice. It's within your control. It's the Green Lantern power ring, right? Limited only by your imagination. Now your family might talk. They might, as we say, kvetch. They might say nasty things. But that's precisely why you're setting these boundaries in the first place, right? You can't change your family. You can only change the way you react to them. And when you change the way you react to them, you give them a chance to show you another side. Because you're showing them another side that is based in self-esteem and self-compassion. Being really clear-eyed about that brightest day in blackest night, about your own power, your own choices, and your own avoidance of hypocrisy goes a long way towards a less hypocritical holiday. Now, when we come back, my own personal journey realizing this. Again, if this inspires something in you, give me a call, 289-275-9600. Leave a message, 289-275-9600, or email Liana@nottherapyshow.com, or, that's too hard to remember, nottherapyshow.com. There's a contact form right there. You can send me a message, or Not Therapy Show, Twitter, Instagram, any way you want to contact me, reach out in the darkness. I really like superheroes. And I'll be back in a bit. I'm Liana Kirsner. I'm still not a therapist. This is still It's Not Therapy. See you on the flip side. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back on It's Not Therapy, talking how to have a less hypocritical holiday. And as I promised, time for my personal story on de-hypocriticalizing. I just made that word up. Less hypocritical holidays. There we go. That was very Porky Pig. Bitty, right? Okay. I'm going to be avoiding some details. This is going to be more vague than usual because, well, some people involved might be listening, or people who know them, and I want to tell my story, not spill tea and dig into details that aren't mine to tell. My story, I used to dread the holidays. I've talked about it on previous episodes, but for those who missed it, I associated the holidays with being mocked, picked on, negatively compared to others, while being expected to be a cook, waitress, dishwasher, or a combination of these things because it was expected, even though those tasks came burdened with near guaranteed verbal abuse. Now, one part of my family at least required everyone to pick a lane this way. You helped with dinner, you did the dishes, you pick. Another part of the family only demanded that women be sources of free labor and targets of emotional battery. And you can hear from my voice how I feel about that to this day. Part one of my journey to less hypocritical holidays, I realized that not setting boundaries with that less good side of the family meant that I was more resentful of the more good side of the family. So I set more boundaries with the less good side of the family, and they didn't like it, but it was better. But there were still those remaining family members that triangulated, right? Used alliance building via secret insults and gossip against third parties to divide and conquer. And they ultimately engaged in what I believe to be abuse of other people I cared about. And I determined that attending functions where they were there meant being complicit in that abuse. So I stopped going. Which again, didn't make me popular in the short term, but that was the lesser of evils. I could live with that more. It meant, top 10, not letting problems that weren't my fault lead to mistakes that were. I couldn't stop the bad behavior in other people. And calling out the bad behavior would just hurt people who weren't really equipped to deal with it. So I took the least bad option, removing myself from the entire paradigm. And who are my motivations mischaracterized? Yeah, fine. I was prepared for that. Not a surprise. Because breaking bad patterns, despite the break being the unpopular decision in the short term, allowed new, healthier patterns to form. It was hard. And I was hurt and angry for a few years, but I realized that that was me not owning my choices. And so I reprogrammed my relationship with the holidays. They're no longer about trying to control what other people think about me. They're about my relationship with myself, my faith, and enough food to feed an army, even though some years it's just me and my husband. Hey, sometimes leftovers are soul medicine, okay? I stand by that. Leftovers are amazing. Cook once, eat 4 times. Now, every holiday's different, right? Based on what feels right and what will create the least stress in a given year. Not being able to gather during COVID lockdown certainly forced the reset, but I also think it brought into focus the elements that are really important. I've heard from numerous people this year, including family, that experiences matter more than gifts to them. And I think that's in part because everything is more expensive this year, and things like freaking lettuce are a luxury. Iceberg freaking lettuce. But is that a bad thing for a year or two? I don't necessarily think so. If a relationship in your life is contingent on stuff changing hands, if the expectation is that you mind read and buy the right stuff or else, is this a healthy relationship? I mean, okay, if you've got money to burn and you want to shower your loved ones with presents, awesome, great, that's kind of you. Just be careful that it doesn't make them feel small. That can happen sometimes. And this is, where we get into that thorny cliche of, it's the thought that counts. And people are rolling their eyes and tensing because, yes, sometimes, it's totally the thought that counts. I'm one of those people, mostly. Depends on what the thought is, But sometimes that it's the thought that counts. It's a test, right? And you don't even know what's being tested. Here's a tip to deal with that, because that sucks. State your intentions as part of the gift-giving process. For instance, brother, you're important to me, and you're always saying that you have too much stuff with no place to put it. So instead of stuff, I got you a subscription to, insert streaming service, Xbox Games Pass, PlayStation Network thing, few months there, because I know you'll enjoy that. You'll get enjoyment out of it. Spend the money on something else. Spend it on the kids, whatever. An alternative to that is you can make someone a meal. go somewhere with them, write them a heartfelt letter on really nice paper. I have some family members where the card is more important than the gift to them. But, some of those cards cost as much as a gift. So in a way, that all works out. Now, you may be thinking, writing a letter? Oh, come on, that's a cop-out. That's just being cheap. But is it? Do you have the money? No one who really cares about you wants you to go into debt for holiday gifts. They may associate stuff with their own personal value, right? What they get is a sign of how much they're worth. Some people do buy into the consumerism of the holidays. Or, they might be in a tight financial spot themselves and they're hoping for gifts to tide them over for a while. This year, that's probably reality for some people and they're hiding it out of shame. Frankly, if that's the case, it's better to talk about it and work out some better sustainable plan for the long term than some gift that's artificially going to buoy things until what? Maybe February? But that's not my business, and that's a tender subject. The hard fact is the world's screwed and times are tough right now. And there's no shame in admitting you're struggling. And if your family shames you for struggling, that's on them, not you. But that's easy to say and hard to do, right? Right. So I'm going to give you some tips to keep that shame, anger, and resentment where it belongs after this break. Again, 289-275-9600. Leave a message, or Liana at nottherapyshow.com, Liana at nottherapyshow.com, or nottherapyshow.com contact form, Not Therapy Show, Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back. Liana Kirsner, not a therapist, yada, yada. Less hypocritical holidays. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. And we are back on It's Not Therapy talking less hypocritical holidays. And I promised, I'm Liana Kirsner, by the way, I promised before the break, we talk about managing and processing negative emotions like shame, anger, and resentment. Again, I'll give out the information just in case, because this may be triggering for some people. 289-275-9600, 289-275-9600, Liana at nottherapyshow.com, or the contact form on nottherapyshow.com, or Not Therapy Show on Twitter and Instagram. Okay. I talk a lot about channeling your thoughts toward the positive without ignoring the negatives. But sometimes it's just a fact that we feel bad. And that's okay. Top 10 phrase, self-esteem cannot exist without self-compassion. Sometimes we feel bad things. The question is, are we feeling unnecessarily bad? When I say listen twice before you talk once, that includes to yourself. My two go-to self-listenings are, what am I feeling and why am I feeling this before I act? Again, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this before I move my body or open my mouth? And it's amazing how many people, including some licensed therapists, skip that step. Just this week, I had someone who said they were a former counselor argue against boundaries. That's right. An alleged former counselor argued against boundaries. Of course, this was on social media, so take this with a grain of salt, but hear me out. Because this is an example of how someone isn't processing negative emotions, okay? I tweeted that there was no good reason to ignore when someone says that you violated their boundaries. This former counselor insisted that no, sometimes people use boundaries to manipulate. What? Of course, they were automatically right and I was automatically wrong because former counselor. right? We're not going to get into why the former. Moving on. Let's break this down, okay? Because this is an example. Listen twice, talk once, both to the other person and yourself, okay? And this is going to help you process some of the bad feelings that come from boundary violations and that feeling of helplessness and powerlessness that comes with it. Hypothetically, yeah, it's possible that there's someone so manipulative that they've weaponized boundaries to control you. It's plausible. I've seen it done. But you know what people like that do when you knowingly violate that boundary they've set because you think they're faking or manipulating you? They label you an abuser and use that to make your life miserable. That's how you let problems that aren't your fault lead to mistakes that are. That's what I caution against when I use that top 10 phrase. Now, if you've fallen for that in the past, it's not your fault. But you can prevent it from happening again in the future. I want to be clear again. No victim blaming here. Psychological abuse of this sort as real. Now, it can be a phenomenon known as splitting, a psychological mechanism that allows a person to tolerate difficult and overwhelming emotions by seeing another person as good or bad, absolutely idealized or devalued. It's a marker of borderline personality disorder, but you also see it in conditions like complex PTSD. When someone splits, and you're the target of it, you go from the greatest person in the world to a being of pure evil in the blink of an eye. Everything's great, then everything is awful. You always do this. You never do that. Yeah, remember I said this might be triggering. Splitting happens a lot when people get drunk on both booze and expectation during holiday gatherings. Now, splitting as part of a serious, psychological condition isn't deliberate attempts to be abusive. The things that people are feeling are legitimately overwhelming, and it's a form of disordered thinking. But the results are abuse. That being said, no matter what a person like this does, deliberate violations on your part of their stated boundaries are wrong. And you're responsible for that. Instead of that, what you do is you set your own boundaries. Determine the behavior you'll not tolerate. For instance, name calling, throwing things, screaming, or slamming doors. And it's very important to state a consequence if they do the thing you've asked them not to do again. Now, people usually say this calmly, but, oh, geez, spare me. No one's calm when someone is screaming and throwing things, right? You can be outwardly even-toned. You can sound like a robot, but don't beat yourself up if you're freaking out inside. Of course you are. That's an inherently scary situation. And here's the even more fun part. That out-of-control person who, in the context of a holiday gathering, is drunk or possibly high, and what I call angry sad, emotionally overwhelmed and lashing out, well, they're going to test that boundary because that's what angry sad people do. If you tell your nagging aunt to stop commenting on your dating life or you'll leave the dinner, I can almost guarantee you she's going to nag you again about your dating life, possibly with a sly grin because how dare you tell her what to do? And that's when you leave the dinner. Just like that. Don't get mad. Get gone. I'm serious because boundaries are all about making a promise and keeping it. Saying you're going to do something, then doing it. And real talk, it's very likely other people will try to guilt you over that. But Top 10 phrase, big top 10 phrase. Other people do not have to like your boundaries, but they do have to respect them. Getting back to your nagging aunt, yelling at her, calling her names, being passive aggressive, or otherwise giving her a taste of her own medicine isn't going to work. Because she's the way she is because she's enabled by other members of your family. All you'll have succeeded in doing by sinking to her level is you'll become a hypocrite. You did to others something you didn't like done to you. Instead of sticking to your core values, you played someone else's game. A game they're better at because they've been doing it longer. So I guarantee you that you're going to lose that game and you're going to end up feeling lousy. Now, it's easy in this situation to deflect feeling bad onto other people, but let's face it, you made the choice to get down to the muck with the proverbial pig, and despite the pig's external outrage, the pig likes it. The pig loves it, in fact, because now they've got ammunition to use against you and an excuse not to be better themselves. Less hypocritical holidays begin with taming your own hypocrisy. By being the hero of your own story, not anyone else's, and approaching the holidays on your own terms in a way that feels authentic and right for you. Now, how do you figure out what's right for you? It's not about perfection. Perfect is a lie. Stop trying to be perfect. Top 10 phrase. Start with what you want to feel during the holidays. Do you want to feel rested? Do you need peace and quiet? Do you want connections with people who sincerely care about you? Do you want to express yourself, be loud, and cut loose? There are no wrong answers here. Once you figure out what you want, which might be harder than you might expect if you spent years eating crow and feeling like you have no choice. Once you figure out what you want, then, and only then, can you figure out how to get that feeling. Now, it's important to not get fixated on particular days things happen in this process. Christmas Day itself might be just a day to catch up on sleep and play video games. But enough about my ideal Christmas Day. Because the people you want to see might only be free on Christmas Eve, Boxing Day, the 28th, some other day during that holiday period. And you know what? That's fine. There are no rules. Don't compare your experience to what other people are doing. Easier said than done. I know those upward social comparisons are powerful, but hear me out. People's photos on social media are carefully curated. Everything someone puts on Facebook is a conscious choice. Everyone leaves things out, embellishes and exaggerates other things because, like I did with my family holiday stories, they know people are watching and listening. And the people watching and listening don't always have the best of intentions, right? And that's what leads to feeling that the holidays are a big crock of, yeah, let's skip over that word. Smart people know other people are faking it. So if you're the sort of person that just wants to let the holidays pass, good on you. But if you're feeling bad about it, are you really feeling bad because of a philosophical opposition? Or could it maybe be a deep sense of disappointment in the people around you? We know that, again, upward social comparisons are linked to decreased mood, depression, feelings of low self-worth. We know this. It's actually documented. So again, back to basics. What do you want? How do you get it? Listen to your inner voice twice before you make decisions once. Now, say you and your inner voice just aren't on speaking terms because of anxiety, depression, or brain fog. Fair and not your fault or under your control. You might be able to hear your inner voice indirectly through the media you connect with, your favorite anime, the songs you relate to, your favorite video game, and the songs you can't stand. I've been hearing from a lot of retail workers about how Mariah Carey is the bane of their existence this time of year because she's one of the 10 songs that get totally overplayed, right? I normally sing, I won't sing that one, okay? There's even a game, I just found out about this, some people play with Wham's Christmas song, Last Christmas, I can't, wait. I can't sing it because that'll violate somebody's Whamageddon. Yes, Whamageddon, where the object of the game is to go as long as possible without hearing the song from December 1st to Christmas Eve. Now, apparently remixes and covers don't count, so I can sing it, but I don't want to jinx it. I don't know how it's possible to go 24 days without hearing Last Christmas I gave you. I sang it. Some people have skills that I just don't. Games like that give people a sense of control, at least over their own thoughts, regarding things that can be obnoxious and they just have to get through. Now, if you can't connect to anything that brings you joy right now, that's not just being grumpy. That's a sign that you're depressed and you deserve support. Crisis lines exist for that reason. Please use them if you have to. But talking to a friend can help too. Other things that can make you feel more in control is stuff like dressing up in ways that make you feel better, rearranging a room in your house just for a change, or one of my favorite things to do this time of year, watch videos of cats destroying Christmas trees. No kidding. I love it. I love videos of cats destroying Christmas trees. I love the evil little chaos energy destroying the appropriated Germanic custom. I don't love cats because they're cute. I love cats because they're little psychos who are also cute. Embracing chaos is my way of making sense of the world. Something doesn't go to a plan? Okay. It's the cat wrecking the tree because the tree is temporary. That video of the cat wrecking the tree will bring joy to millions of little black hearts like mine. Made you laugh, didn't I? Because you didn't expect someone to go there on a show like this. Again, a lot of mental wellness is an expectations game. Expectations have to be high enough to feel like you're striving, but not so high that they're impossible or highly unlikely. Now, expectations aren't the same as goals. Huh? Yeah, teaser to hold over after the final commercial break. Now, if you want to watch cat videos destroying Christmas trees during the commercial break, you go right ahead. 289-275-9600 if you want to give me a call. Liana at nottherapyshow.com. Contact form on nottherapyshow.com. At nottherapyshow on Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back after this break. I'm Liana Kersner. I'm going to watch a video of a cat destroying a Christmas tree during this break. You can too. Be back in a bit. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. Did you watch a video of a cat destroying a Christmas tree? We are back. We are back. If you missed it, that's okay. You can get it after the show, or you can watch it while you're listening to me. It's audio, eyes, ears, different things. What? Final segment, talking less hypocritical holidays. 289-275-9600. If something inspires or triggers you here, Liana at nottherapyshow.com, nottherapyshow.com, at nottherapyshow on contact Instagram, Twitter. I'm throwing out the deets a lot because, like I said, rough stuff, but final segment and practical advice for these problems. I promised I'd talk about the difference between expectations and goals. And this is a very important element of less sucky or even enjoyable holidays. Here's how it works. An expectation is something you predict will happen that you plan for. A goal is something you hope will happen that you strive for. Now, you want to make the goals things you can control, and you want to make the expectations realistic, not catastrophic. Okay? Examples. Expectation. My sister-in-law is going to get drunk and obnoxious by 10 p.m. because she does every year. Goal. I'm going to tell my parents that I'm going to leave when that happens because I'd rather have fond memories over a shorter period of time than my lasting memory being my sister-in-law calling me fat again. So she gets drunk, I go before that can happen. See how the two connect? Here's another example. Expectation. My father will likely criticize something about me. Goal. When he does, I'm going to tell him I love him and not otherwise respond. That's just an example. Another example. Expectation. If we're late to arrive at mom, she'll complain and nag even though we did our best to arrive on time. Goal. We'll tell her we'll be a half hour later than we planned to avoid that. See how the expectations are things you can't control? Goals are things you can control. Healthy goal setting helps you avoid obsessing over negative expectations that can lead to you being bad crazy. Here are some other expectations and goals. Expectation. I'm going to be alone on Christmas. Goal. I'm going to reach out to friends to arrange something. Maybe not on Christmas Day proper, but close to it. And I'm going to plan activities on Christmas for myself that'll make me happy and make the day special somehow. Expectation. I'm going to feel bad because I don't have as much money as others to spend on gifts. Goal. I'm going to help with meals, make handmade cards, offer coupons for services to people like fixing things or helping them with errands over the year that'll make their lives easier and show I care. I'm going to be a source of affirmations and a good listener. I may feel bad about my financial situation, but I'm not going to feel worse than I need to because my worth is valued by what I do for others, not my bank account. Then remember that Elon Musk is a completely miserable person, so money doesn't buy happiness. That's how expectations and goals work together. Sometimes your experience is profoundly framed by what you focus on, not what actually happens. If you're dreading the way your cousin picks on you or the way your sister-in-law gossips, remove yourself from the room when it starts, even if it's just to go to the bathroom. Then when you go to the bathroom, do what I do. Do the bathroom dance. Yes, the bathroom dance. The dumbest, most noodly arm dance you can possibly do. Flail like a Muppet, thinking or saying, bathroom dance, bathroom dance. Well, you do it. Why? Because it's stupid. And you can't fixate on your sister-in-law's Karen act when you're acting like a lunatic where no one can see and hopefully no one can hear you. Bathroom dance. Bathroom dance. Now, okay, I have IBS, so I can take as many bathroom dances as I want and no one can really stop me. Okay, they can try, but do they really want to chance it? See, the bathroom dance is power. Also, I have accounts full of things like cats wrecking Christmas trees that I can sneak a peek at in the bathroom after or before the bathroom dance. The goal here, other than being a lunatic in a good way, is to have something that stops you from dwelling on the bad stuff and gets you moving or laughing to shake off the stress. What it also does is getting up and go to the bathroom and being a freak for a minute. It breaks the rhythm of the boundary busting or the otherwise poor, obnoxious behavior that's going on. And that can be a real sanity saver. One way or another, there's never a reasonable expectation that you should have to sit somewhere and just take abuse. And your goal, everybody's goal, should be for everyone to have a good time. Everyone feels a little bit uncomfortable about some things, so no one feels unbearably uncomfortable. I mean, if you're sitting there right now going, that would be great, but it's not possible, why are you going? Why is this a group, a setting that you choose to spend time in? Consider if you really can't say something or you just don't know how, Or, I'm trying to be very gentle about this. You're not giving people the chance to give you what you want and help you feel accepted because you felt so rejected so often in the past. The only way people can be there for you is if you let them be there for you. And if you don't say something, people may not know anything is wrong. And if you're expecting people to mind read, if you're expecting people to consider you when you're not letting them know what they need to consider, well, that's a pretty hypocritical holiday, isn't it? And you can do something about that. Change is within your control. Now, speaking of accountability, I am going to take the next 2 weeks off because it is approaching the holidays and I'm feeling burnt out. I can't sit here and give advice the whole time if I don't take my own advice when I'm feeling like I'm getting to those limits, right? So we'll run a rerun next week and maybe the week after. I don't know. Maybe you can send me a message on Twitter or Instagram at Not Therapy Show what episode you like to hear replayed. I might just take the highest rated one and replay it over the holiday. I don't know. I'll make up my mind later. Bathroom dance. But because this is the end of 2022 for It's Not Therapy, I really appreciate all of you spending a journey of 30 episodes with me. 30 episodes already. I hope this show helps you go into the new year feeling stronger, more centered, and healthier. And if you missed any episodes, you can catch up on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all those things like that. If you're listening on podcasts, you already know that. Sorry for the redundancy. Some people listen on radio. But remember, you are the hero of your own story, not anyone else's, and that will continue into the holidays and into 2023. The best days of your life are ahead of you. I promise that, no matter what they are, as long as you put in the work and, don't let problems that aren't your fault lead to mistakes that are. So I will probably be on social media during the holidays, almost guaranteed. So if you want to reach out there and chat, you can. Otherwise, I'm going to sign off for 2022. This is a little emotional. Bathroom dance. Okay. I am Liana Kersner. I am not a therapist. I am a delightful lunatic because you know what's coming. Your crazy is only a problem if it's hurting you. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. See you in 2023.